In this video, I'm gonna talk about Bubble and Webflow and compare those two no-code tools side by side. If you don't know me yet, my name is Kyle. Nice to meet you. I'm the Chief No-Code Officer here at WeAreNoCode, and in this channel we talk all about the no-code space. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and also leave a thumbs up on the video. I just want to say that probably this is not gonna be a short video because I'm gonna cover a lot of details about those tools and do a full comparison. So bear in mind that this video will have a lot of great content and will not be a short one. Let's go. So inside this Miro board, I prepared some categories that I'm gonna be talking about and breaking down today. I'm going to talk about responsive design, price, database, can you export code or not from these two tools, about user login and account functionalities, plugins, flexibility, and also pre-made components. Of course, there are many other things we can talk about these particular two tools, but for this video, I'm going to cover all these topics. And if you want me to cover more, let me know in the comment section, then I can create more videos in the future comparing more features for Bubble and Webflow. All right, let's talk about Bubble for now. So Bubble is best for web apps. And what do I mean by web apps? Well, web apps are apps you can open on your browser window. And if you're wondering, can I build mobile apps using Bubble? Yes, you can, but it's not its main goal. To build a mobile app using Bubble, you need to wrap this web app into a native mobile app. So this is a little bit of a more complex setup and it's not very streamlined when you use Bubble. So Bubble was built to create web apps. That might change in the future, but for now, when I'm still recording this video, this is how it works. So Bubble is best for web apps. And Webflow is kind of similar, but more for websites for now. So can you create mobile apps using Webflow? Yes, you can, but it's not the main goal. And I would say you would be losing a lot of features comparing to other tools that are focusing on creating mobile apps or especially native apps. So don't focus on those two tools if you want to use them to create mobile apps, especially if you want to create native mobile apps, then you would be looking for another kind of tools. You can also create e-commerce stores, but I would say there are better options out there for you to create e-commerce, but you can. Of course, with Bubble, you can also create e-commerce, you can create marketplaces, you can create CRMs, you can create SaaS products and much more. So yeah, you can build more complex applications with Bubble. And with Webflow, for now, I would say it's still very good for websites, landing pages as well. And I would say in some cases, it's better to build websites and landing pages inside Webflow than inside Bubble. So in this comparison, like websites, Webflow to me is the best option for that specifically, and for other more complex types of projects I would use Bubble. But Bubble, bear in mind that there is a higher learning curve, so it's more complex and probably you would take more time to learn and to understand how it works and to start building projects inside Bubble. But for sure, it's more flexible, and Webflow is, like I said, not aiming to be a Bubble replacement. It's very different, and it has its own benefits and features to build websites in a better and faster way than Bubble, for example. So I would say Webflow doesn't shine too much when you want to create apps like that, web apps, more complex apps, although you can find ways to build more complex solutions inside Webflow, and we are constantly having new evolutions coming for Webflow, even some third-party services being created to allow you to build more complex solutions inside Webflow. So I wouldn't say it's impossible to build more complex things within Webflow. It is, but since Bubble was actually created to allow you to do that, I would stick with Bubble if you want to build more complex stuff, and if you're comparing just those two tools. And for websites, I would say Webflow is amazing, and yeah, It's one of the best tools to build websites and landing pages today, especially if you're a designer, if you're wanting to create amazing experiences, well done design, pixel perfect design. This is an amazing tool for that. And Bubble in some aspects can have some limitations in terms of what you can do in terms of visuals, and Webflow is way more powerful in that regard. In terms of responsive design, Bubble does have lots of features that will allow you to build responsive projects, and Webflow also has a lot of features for you to build responsive projects as well. In this comparison, Webflow takes the lead because it has a lot of flexibility. It has Flexbox, CSS grid built-in. Bubble has some concepts of Flexbox and other options you can use to build responsive projects as well, but I would say it's not as customizable yet as Webflow is. So I would say Webflow wins in that regard and has better features, better user experience on their interface as well. So it's way better in that regard, and the flexibility you have to build responsive projects inside Webflow. So I would say Bubble is a little bit behind Webflow in that regard, but yet it's still possible for you to build amazing responsive design projects inside Bubble. It's just that, in my opinion, Webflow is way better in that aspect as well. In terms of pricing, Bubble starts at $25 a month on an annual plan and will raise to $29 a month on a monthly plan. So this is the cheapest plan to run a Bubble application, and yes, you have to pay this price for each application you want to build. Even though you can build multiple applications under the same account, this is the price you pay to run each individual application. So if you have more than one application that you are going to build under the same account while you're using Bubble, yes, you have to pay this amount for each individual application that you publish. If you want to build just to test, to build for fun and experiment, there is a free plan you can use, but as soon as you want to connect your domain or have access to more complex features, you have to pay at least for the personal plan that is going to cost you either $25 or $20 a month. And then later, if your application scales, grows, you need more infrastructure, more capabilities, more capacity, then you will have other plans that will cost a little bit more, but that shouldn't be a concern because you would probably be making money already with this application. So it would be fine for you to pay the price if you're upgrading and going to the next level. Talking about Webflow, you have the site plans and e-commerce plans. For now, I will just cover the site plans, which are the ones that I think make most sense for this comparison right now. You have a starter plan that you can publish your Webflow application for free, hosted on a subdomain. There are some limitations, of course, for the free plan. It's just for you to get started, test, and validate if that's exactly what you want to build. And once you decide to publish your website live, then you have to pick a plan. And this plan starts at $12 per month on an annual plan. And if you don't want to pay for the whole year, it will cost you $15 on a monthly plan. And this is the most basic plan. It will allow you to get started and have a nice website. If you want to use the CMS functionalities that allow you to add data inside your website and then have some area you can customize this content, like for example, if you want to create a blog, then this price will raise a little bit. On the yearly plan, it will be $16. So let's put it here. CMS will be $16 a month. And on a monthly plan, it will cost $20. And again, yes, this is per project. So if you want to publish more than one website, consider paying this price for each project. So as we can see, Webflow, when talking about price, is a little bit more affordable. And then also once you upgrade, you can access more advanced plans as well. You have more features, more functionality. You can have more items on your database, more bandwidth for this project. So yeah, it's very affordable especially if you consider the price of hiring agencies or developers to build that product for you. Imagine having a possibility to create and run a startup business at $25, $29, $30 or $15 per month using no-code tools. It's very affordable. But in this comparison here, Webflow is cheaper. But like I mentioned, sometimes if you want to create bigger projects, if you want to create more complex projects, the way to go would be Bubble. Of course, there are other alternatives, but in this video, we are comparing both. So I would not mention other possibilities when comparing to Bubble directly. But if we compare just Bubble and Webflow, that's the comparison. That's the scenario. If you want to get started in the no-code space, we prepared a free course just for you. There's a link down below in the video description section. Just go there, click and enroll for free today. Now let's talk about databases. So when talking about databases, both Bubble and Webflow have built-in databases, which means you can store information inside your project created either inside Bubble or Webflow, which is really nice. So Bubble, yes, they have a database, and Webflow, they have a database as well. In this case, the database inside Webflow is a little bit more limited in terms of what you can do. It's just a site CMS. You can host a blog, you can host information from your users, from your pages. And I think also this CMS part is in constant evolution. So I think in the future you will be able to do more with it. But Bubble is more sophisticated in terms of databases and what you can build. And also it's important to remember that both of those tools allow you to integrate with third-party data services as well. So if you want to integrate with another type of database or another no-code tool that only will be used to host the information, will be used as your database, it's also possible. So when comparing Bubble and Webflow and talking about databases, I would say Bubble is the winner, but both have good features in terms of databases. I would say in terms of user experience and setting the database, Webflow is better in that regard. Now let's talk about exporting code. So that's a very common question. A lot of people want to export the code from no-code tools because they want to have the code in their hands. They want to own the code. I would say that's not the case with the major no-code tools out there. So that's a little bit of a misconception that a lot of people have. But let's see what you can do with those tools. So Bubble doesn't allow you to export code. So there is no built-in feature that you can go inside Bubble and click export code and get the code. And why does it happen? Why? Because Bubble was not built with the intention of generating code for you. Bubble is the editor, but also the infrastructure, the hosting, everything, the database. It's an all-in-one solution for you to get everything done for you and just pay a monthly fee to get your application running. And yes, you are kind of stuck with them forever, but that's how it works. You leverage the good parts and there are some downsides as well, but I would say it's not a big downside since the pricing is pretty okay. If you ever manage to export this code or scrape this code somehow so you can get access to the code, you will lose editing capabilities, you will lose the way the code works, you will lose the database and everything. So no guys, you cannot export code from Bubble. That's how it is. And when talking about Webflow, yes, you can export the code, but bear in mind that when you export the code from Webflow, then you have to deal with code. You lose all the editing capabilities of the visual editor. So that means once you take the code out of Webflow, then you have to host it yourself somewhere. And if you ever want to change the website you built or anything that you built with Webflow, then you have to go manually in the code itself and change it, or you have to go back to the editor, change it, export again, and then update this code to your server. And also bear in mind that if you create a dynamic project and you build things inside Webflow with the CMS that is built inside the tool, and then you export the code, all the functionalities, all the integrations between the Webflow CMS and your project will be lost. So yes, you will be exporting the code, but then the code is gonna lose all the dynamic parts of it. So unless as you are building a static website, exporting the code from Webflow will not help a lot. The only benefit would be if you just want to build a front end and export the HTML and CSS code from Webflow and then use Webflow just as a visual builder. But if you want to build more complex projects with dynamic data using the CMS, then you have to leave the code there and host within Webflow and pay for their hosting plans and keep everything inside Webflow as well. So yes, you can export, but there are some limitations and there are some scenarios where it doesn't make sense for you to export the code from Webflow, even though it allows you to export some parts of it. Now let's talk about user login and account functionalities. Inside Bubble, yes, you can build those features and you can fully customize how your login, your sign up screens will look like. You can build everything from scratch the way you want it to be like. So you have full flexibility to create any login account registration process you want to create, and it can be exactly the way you want it. Very, very customizable. With Webflow, you also can create login and account functionalities, but it is still in beta. At least while I'm recording this video right now, they released a new feature called memberships, but this feature is still in beta and only some users have access to this feature so far. It will be released to everybody later, I don't know exactly when, and then you'll be able to create login functionalities natively inside Webflow. If you also want to use other services, there are some that you can use to create login functionalities like Wise and also member stacks. So you can use those tools to create login experiences inside Webflow. But that means you would have to plug in a third-party service to allow you to use those extra functionalities on top of Webflow. So yes, it's possible, but there are a couple ways to do it. And I would say in that aspect, Bubble is a little bit better because you can build more freely and you only need one tool to use, which is Bubble itself. You don't need any extra service to achieve that goal. Once the new memberships is available inside Webflow as a native feature, then I would say both would be comparable side by side and would be good options for you to build custom login and account functionalities. When talking about plugins, Bubble has a lot of plugins for you to use, and they can expand a lot the things you can do inside Bubble. Some are free and some are paid. So yes, if you are looking for plugins, Bubble has a lot of plugins. Webflow doesn't have a plugins section, but it doesn't mean it cannot integrate with another tools. Yes, it can. So there are some plugins like Zapier and other options available out there that you can use to integrate to Webflow and then get more advanced features inside your Webflow project. So you can use plugins like Zapier, Integromat. You can also use those with Bubble as well. But the cool thing about Webflow is that there is a community around it, creating snippets of codes and a lot of useful things that you can use to build more complex Webflow projects. Also, there are third-party tools that are creating amazing solutions to use within Webflow. So yes, you have a lot of options to use with Webflow as well. Now let's talk about flexibility. Bubble is very flexible, so you can build pretty much any kind of application you want to build inside Bubble, because it's really a blank canvas that you can start building from scratch. If we compare to Webflow, Webflow is also very flexible, and you have the flexibility to build everything you want to build, because really you can start from scratch without using anything, then just dragging components on the screen, and you can change pretty much every setting you want to build. So in terms of flexibility, I would say even Bubble and Webflow, they are very flexible tools. Have in mind that because they are so flexible, it might be a little bit more challenging for you to learn, because the more flexibility you have, the more you have to understand and to know how to use those tools to achieve your desired goals. So it's good to have flexibility, but it means working with more complex tools and having to learn more features to know how to dominate all the features and settings you have available to use inside those tools. But both are very good and very flexible. Now let's talk about pre-made components. And what do I mean by pre-made components? components? Well, if you go inside Webflow and Bubble, you'll find components that you can use to drag and drop and start building your application, such as buttons, text, form fields, inputs, and so much more. In this case, I'm talking about pre-made components that you can use to build entire sections, and this usually speeds up the process of building any kind of application. Inside Bubble, you can find some pre-made components, but I would say their library is not full of pre-made components to use from scratch. So you really have to build everything piece by piece and then get a full section done. This is not the case inside Webflow. Webflow has a library full of pre-made sections that you can leverage to build faster. So in that case, Bubble, I would say no, they just have a few, and I don't think they are very good. And Webflow, yes, they have a few ones, and they are pretty good. And also they recently updated that part and even created better components for you to get started. Also, you have templates that you can leverage to build faster. Bubble also has templates that you can buy or find for free. Both Bubble and Webflow have templates that you can use and you can find to buy or that are free, made by the community for you to use. Bubble also has some third-party players creating components that you can use, like Atomic Fusion, Open Build, and Frames. So you can use those tools to speed up your process while building in Bubble. In that case, I'm comparing the native components that each tool has. So in that case, I would say Webflow is a winner, but both have a lot of options that you can find on the web that were created by companies, agencies, or even people on the community that wanted to provide a way to build faster and quicker. So if we're not comparing just the native options, both have a lot of options of pre-made components and templates that you can leverage to build faster while using Bubble or Webflow. Like I mentioned, this is not all the things we can compare from both of those tools. Those tools are very awesome and they have a lot of different features. They are very different from each other, but it's always nice to compare both of them so you can have a better understanding of both those no-code tools. This was an amazing comparison and I hope you liked this video and you could learn a little bit more about Bubble and Webflow to make your decision. Also, let's continue the conversation on the comment section below. If you want to add something, if you want to comment something, feel free, don't be shy. Go there on the comment section and leave your comments down below. I see you on the next videos. Let's no code.